Hey guys, going on? This me, Jay. I just wanted to report on some news that's going on in the international world today, having to do with the former British Commonwealth of Nations. Britain is now the name of Great Britain. The UK is now granting Barbados independent republican status. Of course, Barbados is the country in the Caribbean that has the longest history with Britain. Hey Lisa. Other other nations in Great Britain, other other nations in the British Caribbean have history with Britain as well, but those other nations belong to other countries besides Britain before in their history. Barbados never has. Barbados has always been a part of the British Empire since the establishment of the British Empire in the 1500s under the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. It was Great Britain's first sugar colony. It was the country that was considered, like I said, the most British out of all the West Indian countries, even more so than Jamaica. People think of Jamaica as the crown in the British Caribbean world, but no, it was really Barbados because Jamaica at one time belonged to the Spanish. The first settlements in Jamaica were established by the Spanish, places like Ocho Rios and Spanish Town initially. So, on Barbados, that was never the case with it, and even in the 70s, 1970s, when other Caribbean nations left the British Commonwealth, like Jamaica, for example, Guyana, Trinidad, Belize, Barbados stayed behind, and Barbados has always really honored the Queen, which I always thought was really weird because they do have their own prime minister, and why would they honor the Queen? I mean, she's all the way far in England, and there they are there. This movement is coinciding with a movement among West Indians to demand reparations for slavery from the British the British government, which I think is appropriate because just like here in the United States, African Americans want to demand reparations. In the Caribbean, it is even more so appropriate because hey, while the the slave population in the United States here never reached beyond the level of 5%. In the Caribbean, it was much, much higher. Um, once the Carib Indians, in the case of Barbados, were completely wiped out, completely decimated, African slaves, African people, as slaves were completely brought in to replicate that whole population. And they made the British crown, they made the British government mad money, and they were the ones that propelled Britain to become the world power that Britain became. There was a saying before World War II, the sun never sets on the British Empire. And let us not forget that it started right here in the Americas, and that the wealth of the British Empire, just like the wealth of the French Empire and the Spanish Empire, was built on the backs of slavery and exploitation. So I think they're glad to see the Queen go. I remember when I watched The Crown and um, the TV show on Netflix, and she touched down on Barbados, and it just seemed like all of her black subjects in not in Barbados just worshipped her, just threw themselves at her feet, and I'm just like, This lady, Queen Elizabeth II, is probably the most racist person, one of the most racist people that you can imagine. And I was proven right when Meghan Markle and Prince Harry did that interview, that the entire family is racist, and that although America's racism is well known, well documented, it's like, well, there's only really three nations that their racism is well documented. America is one, Germany is one, and South Africa is one. So, but England has its England has its subtleties of racism as well. England was, in fact, racist for a lot longer. It was because of England that America became racist. We adopted, of course, everything good we adopted from England, and everything bad we adopted from England. And part of what we adopted from England that was bad was the attitude towards race. Um, so yeah, they'll be switching over to their prime minister as the head of state um, in Barbados. So congratulations to them. Um, Bajans, as they're called, yeah, they're gonna have their first woman president, Lisa. But they're gonna have their first president, period. Um, and the thing is crazy, like America, right? We never push for this. We should always be pushing for this because we are a republic. We should always be pushing for republican forms of government. But somehow, even in the Monroe Doctrine, when um, James Monroe issues a decree in the mid 1800s that all European countries have to leave this hemisphere. He directs it at Spain, but says nothing about England's holdings in the Caribbean. But he completely directs it at Spain, and that was what it inevitably led to. That was, in my opinion, the first shots in the salvo of what becomes the Spanish American War. But we should have been, as the United States, we should have been pushing for, yeah, they don't care about black countries. That's true, Lisa, but you have to at least, they don't care about the other countries that are not white either, but they try to push that line. You think they really care about Asian countries or um, Middle Eastern countries? No, they don't care about them either, but they push the line that America is for democracy. But somehow, when it came to the countries in the Caribbean that were held by Britain, they were allowed to remain British colonies until um, like now. So America kind of looks the other way when it comes to Great Britain. Of course, because we're like cousins. You know what I mean? So that's how it works. Barbados is interesting because it is one of the countries that led one of the largest slave revolts in Caribbean history in the late 1700s. And when this revolt, it's called Busa's revolt, was was put down, there was a letter by the the planter there called the Willy Lynch letter, and he issued it out to all slave owners in the Western Hemisphere, and you can often see it floating around communities now. On It was a basic an instruction manual of how to maintain the system of slavery and how to maintain the system of supremacy by dividing up the women against the men, the light skin against the dark skin, the rich against the poor, the privileged against the poor. So when they put this revolt down, this Busa's revolt down, they use this template all across the world to create an um, obedient slaves. Okay, the lady's name is Sandra Mason. Okay, wow, thank you, Lisa. I didn't know that, but I think now that they're an independent country, they should put Rihanna as one of their national heroes. Right? Rihanna is no joke. Rihanna is one of the people. A lot of people don't probably know about Barbados, where it is or whatever, but she is so closely associated with the country of Barbados. Hey, why not? Right? She's a Bajan. She's a proud Bajan. Shout out to Bridgetown and all the Bajans. Um, yeah, being here from Brooklyn, I know well, all the West Indian countries, all the little ones. People outside of Brooklyn are people that are not really not outside of Brooklyn necessarily, but they don't have really exposure to um, other countries in the West Indies, so they think every West Indian is Jamaican. You know what I mean? The West Indian, the West Indies, the Caribbean archipelago, has a lot of smaller little islands that are not just Jamaicans. Trinidadians, of course, Bajans, of course, Antiguans, Belizeans, Guyanese, different ethnicities that are not just Jamaicans. People hear a West Indian Grenadian, people hear a West Indian accent and automatically think, oh, well, that's Jamaican. You know, no, there's difference. There's differences in the Caribbean accents, differences in the food, differences in the. Yeah, I was thinking that too, Lisa. You're right. Lisa's she wouldn't be surprised if Rihanna's given some type of political title there, just like Shine is with Belize. Well, it worked for not only Shine and Belize, but it kind of almost worked for Wyclef and Haiti, right? Um, the same thing. A lot of these smaller little countries that they don't have any big celebrities representing them in the American media, they do um, gravitate towards um, having giving celebrities, some political power, some political clout. So yeah. Um, hey, look at when Nicki Minaj, same thing. Maybe not on the level, not in the political realm or whatever, but when Nicki Minaj uh, goes back to Trinidad, the 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 kind of love, especially at first, like when she first came out in 2010, she got a lot of love with the Trinidadian community. You know what I'm saying? Um, like Lisa said, the Belizean community, Shine, um, with Shine. And uh, well, Jamaicans, they got a whole genre of music. Almost every reggae artist is Jamaican. Haiti with Wyclef. Um, Dominican Republic, they got a whole genre too, bachata music. So that represents them. And Puerto Rico too, every reggaeton artist. You know what I mean? Like Daddy Yankee, Nicky Jams, people like this. They go hard for their celebrities. They go hard for their media personality because they don't have a lot of them. So when they do get one, they're like, "Yo, we're gonna put them front and center. We're gonna represent for them." You know, especially West Indian culture is very festive, very lively, soca music, and that type of um, music that is what is West Indian because it's just a party atmosphere. When we have it here in Brooklyn every year, Labor Day, it gets jumping, boy. You see those girls, pretty attractive young ladies from Barbados, from Trinidad, from Belize, from even Central American countries. Like, well, Belize is Central American, but it's West Indian. But Central American countries like Panama that you wouldn't expect um, West Indians to be there because a lot of Panamanians, like me and Lisa, we knew somebody that when we used to go to this Saturday program, she was a Panamanian, but her roots was in Barbados. She had Bayesian roots. So, no, yeah, Lisa is a person, she's of Belizean descent, but when I'm talking about the one, the girl I'm talking about, Lisa, is our Julia. Remember, our Julia, she was from Panama, but her family, yeah, Belizean. Yeah. Lisa is Belizean. Lisa has roots in Belize. But this girl that we knew, our Julia, she was Panamanian, but her roots was in Barbados because when they were building the Panama Canal in the early 1900s, they they needed labor. So they contacted a lot of people that were Belizean. I mean, a lot of people that were Belizeans, a lot of people that were Bajans, a lot of people that were Jamaicans, and a lot of people that were Trinidadians to go down there and to build the Panama Canal. And because it was part of the United States until the 1970s, they maintained their English speaking culture and their West Indian culture different than the rest of Panama, which is Hispanic. You know what I mean? So a lot of times you will see, um, just like with Belizeans, you will see Belizeans different than um, other countries in Central America. Same thing with Panama. They're more West Indians, Costa Ricans, especially Costa Ricans from Limon, that city in Costa Rica. They're different than the rest of Costa Rica, which is Hispanic. That part of Costa Rica, that particular part of Costa Rica, is West Indian. So you're like, wait a minute, how did West Indian people, people that speak like West Indians, people that speak English Creole, people that speak Patois, how did they end up in Central America? Well, it's very simple. They migrated to there. In the case of Belize, they didn't really migrate to there, but they were under Britain. Like Britain had this agreement with Spain where they split up Honduras, and Belize became British Honduras, and the Honduras that we think of with Tegucigalpa as the capital, that's Hispanic, they became the regular Honduras. Interesting. Um, a good book to read on all of Caribbean history is From Columbus to Castro by Eric Williams. Eric Williams, the first president of an independent Trinidad and Tobago, and he basically lays out. Does it have issues? What do you mean by issues, though, Lisa? I know the issues not really. It's pretty much a hima. a homogenous population, pretty much not, um, no racial issues. It's not like um, economic issues. I don't know because now it's going to be independent on its own, so it might have some economic issues. Problem with the Caribbean, problem with the Caribbean countries, and this is an issue for my people as well, for Boricuas, is because we are so we're our countries are completely dependent on tourism. So if there's no tourism, like there's a new strain of COVID-19 that's out there, so it might be limiting tourism. So the question is this the right time for Barbados to be doing this? Because given that their economy is so centered on tourism, could their economy survive being independent from the UK? Um, at this at this at this particular point, just like Puerto Rico always has to think about these issues concerning the United States. Puerto Rico itself is like about Barbados. What um, Barbados' relationship to the UK is kind of like Puerto Rico's relationship to the US. They would like to be independent, but can they really be independent given that the economy is centered on tourism? And this is with the new Omni Omnicron Omnicon strain of COVID. Is this the time? Is this the time to declare independence? Sure, there's something you wanted to do. Sure, it's something that is good. I'm not saying it's not, but is it something that you want to do at this time? What I mean, is it a wise decision? You've never been independent before. Just like Puerto Rico, never been independent before, never been on her own, never stood on her own 2 feet necessarily, really ever. Always had the crutch of a bigger nation, when she needed it. So um, it remains to be seen if there's going to be any economic issues. I hope not. And then another issue for Caribbean countries, and of course, Puerto Rico has dealt with this, Haiti has dealt with this. See, Cuba is a little bit different because Cuba doesn't care. Cuba rather remain independent and never submit to any other world power. They chased the United States out. They chased Spain out. You know what I mean? So, but another issue for Caribbean countries is hurricanes, weather. Weather is always an issue for Caribbean countries. We've seen Haiti deal with this. We've seen Puerto Rico deal with this. We've seen DR deal with this. We've seen even Cuba deal with this. It's a reality of the Caribbean. It's such a reality of the Caribbean that in ancient times, in the Caribbean pantheon of gods, that was the Taino gods before before the Europeans came. The evil god of the Tainos was a hurricane, was personified as a hurricane. So just like how Christianity has a devil, well, in a Taino religion, in the Taino pantheon, they had hurricane, which is where we get the English word hurricane. So people in the Caribbean, even then, back in ancient times, knew that hurricanes ain't nothing to joke with. So to answer your question, Lisa, um, I hope they don't have any economic issues, but being that their economy is completely dependent on tourism and the region that they're from, natural disasters wise, they probably will. But as far as issues concerning like different ethnicities and stuff like that, um, racial or political issues, ethnic issues. No, they don't really have that. They're one of the most homogenous countries in the Caribbean. Only countries that really deal with that in the Caribbean. Well, Belize deals with it to some extent because Belize has Belize. No, they'll get it. No, they won't get as much help, Lisa, as they would. They'll get help. Don't get me wrong. They will get help. Don't misunderstand me, but they won't get as much help from the UK as they would have if they would have remained part of the UK. It's kind of like, okay, when you move um, out of your parents' house, if you fall in economic hard times, you'll get help from your mom and dad, but you won't get as much. They won't be taking care of you in the way that they were when you were living there, but they will still help you. So what I'm saying is the UK government now might be a little bit stingy to want to take care of Barbados in the way that they used to because hey, you're not a commonwealth of us anymore. You're not directly part of us anymore. You're not part of our realm. You wanted to be independent, now you're independent. Let's see how you handle yourself. And that's an issue, like I said, for a lot of Caribbean countries. Puerto Rico with the U.S. and Aruba with the Netherlands and Martinique and Guadeloupe with France. Um, you have a lot of Caribbean countries and Caribbean territories that um, are actually part of bigger nations politically, and those bigger nations, whether they be in the United States or in Europe, they take care of them when they need them. But sometimes that's not always the case because look at Puerto Rico in 2017 when Hurricane Maria happened. Yeah, we're part of the United States politically. We not might not be a state, you know what I mean? But we're supposed to be part of the United States politically, and they didn't take care of us. You know what I mean? So sometimes on paper, the mother country might be obligated to take care of the lesser country, like Aruba. I mean, like the Netherlands with Aruba, or France with Martinique, but they don't. Or Britain with formerly with Barbados, or America with Puerto Rico, or the U.S. Virgin Islands, but they don't because they say, well, you're part of the United States, but you ain't part of the United States. You're part of the UK, but you ain't part of the UK. You know, you're not like Scotland or Northern Ireland or Wales or England, which make up the countries, which are the countries that make up the core of the United Kingdom. Those four. Just like we have 50 states, they have four different countries united in one. And the other lesser countries are part of their commonwealth. And they can take care of them if they want. They cannot take care of them if they want. Countries, they were in a better position economically. But hey, it's all about self-determination. It's all about um, deciding your own destiny. That was the point of Australia becoming an independent nation, New Zealand becoming an independent uh, nation, Ireland becoming an independent nation in the 20s because Ireland used to be part of the UK as well. So they're gonna have it a little bit tougher economically. But like I said, as far as like racial and ethnic issues, Barbados doesn't have that. They have pretty much a homogenous population, pretty much all African or black, except for a small population of white indentured laborers that they descendants of Irish indentured laborers that they call white redlegs. Like we have rednecks in America, we have red legs in Barbados, but that's a very small group Other than that, they don't have problems like that. The only countries in the Caribbean that really have problems like that is like Belize, different ethnicities, or Trinidad or Guyana with different ethnicities. So they're good on that front. But it's just with the economic, with the limiting of tourism um, and the, the natural disasters that every other Caribbean country deals with. So, but anyway, congratulations to the lady that Madam Mason that finally done it. I'm pretty sure the royal family is upset about this and angry about this because the thing about Britain is that could you imagine being Great Britain, being one of the most powerful nations in the whole world, controlling most of the world, controlling most of the Middle East, controlling most of the Caribbean, most of Africa, especially after World War One, where they completely took over all the German colonies in East Africa, and then now they own basically nothing. They don't even own the first. They don't even own the first Caribbean colony that they ever had, Barbados, or they don't even own the first colony they ever had in history, which is Ireland. So it's kind of like the decline of the British century. The British century, of course, Queen Victoria all the way up here. When she was Queen of England, England was the most powerful nation on earth. They controlled India, they controlled Pakistan, Afghanistan, everywhere. Yeah, Little England, yeah, because it is the most English colony in the in the Caribbean. Here's how I break it down as far as culture in the Caribbean. Um, Barbados is the most English. Haiti is the most African. Puerto Rico is the most Spanish. Excuse me, the most American. Um, Trinidad is the most East Indian, and the other countries are kind of a mix between all that. And of course, Be- Bel- um, Belize is the most native and indigenous of all the Caribbean countries because in most of the Caribbean countries, as far as being the most Spanish, I would say in a weird way, it's probably the Dominican Republic because they were the only country that declared their independence from Spain, then went back to being a Spanish colony. That's crazy. They fought the war against Haiti in 1844, and then as soon as they got their own independence, they went back to being a part of Spain. Like, why would you do that? If you've already your own independence, why would you go back to Spain? But just like with Barbados and England, DR was Spain's first colony. So it set up in 1501. So yeah, that's the Caribbean. And congratulations to Barbados, Little England. Yeah, Bajans have when Bajans speak, they have a more English tinge to their accent because England's been there the longest. Anyway, thank you, Lisa, for contributing. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell button to see when my next video is coming out. Peace. Oh, and the most French island in the Caribbean, people would think Haiti, but the most French island in the Caribbean, in my opinion, is Martinique. And of course, the most Dutch island, even though they don't really, well, Suriname, but they don't really speak Dutch in these three countries, Aruba, Barbados, and Curacao, at all. They speak a language that is similar to Spanish, Tapimento. So even though they belong to the Netherlands politically, culturally they're a little bit different. So I would say Suriname is the most Dutch, Martinique is the most French, Puerto Rico is the most American, DR is the most Spanish, Haiti is the most African, and Barbados is the most English, and Trinidad is the most East Indian, and Belize is the most native. All of them have influences from all those places, but some have it more than others. Peace. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Once again, Lisa, thank you for contributing. Love you.